Hey guys, we are gonna start Act 4, Scenes 4 and 5 today. But before we do that, let's go over what happened in our last scene. Remember, that is when Juliet gets back from the friars. She kind of lays it on a little thick. She tells her dad, I'm so sorry, I fall prostrate before you, I beg your forgiveness, and from now on, I will do whatever you want me to do. Dad is so happy about that he moves the wedding up. That causes problems for Juliet because now she has to drink the potion that night. When she gets rid of her mom and the nurse and she's in her room by herself, she starts to be afraid. Remember, we talked about how that makes sense. Any semi-intelligent person should be afraid. Imagine if you were going to be knocked out in a coma, for instance, for 2 days. Any number of things can go wrong with that. So it is wise for her to be afraid. So what's she afraid of specifically? First of all, remember she said, what if it doesn't work at all? What if I just wake up like I slept well? She puts the dagger by her bed and she says this will take care of that. Then she starts to get a little illogical and wonder if perhaps the friar's trying to kill her. Why would he kill her? Again, because he did something he probably shouldn't have. She realizes, no, little weird for me to think my pastor's trying to kill me. So, then she moves on to something a little more logical, and that is, what if she wakes up before Romeo or the friar get to the tomb? Her first idea is she might be suffocated then. Again, we talked about that, how silly that is, that you would wake up and then realize you have no oxygen and then you die. The second one, probably a little more logical, because a lot of people are really afraid of death and afraid of graveyards and tombs and such. And she thinks, because she's young and fragile, that she might be terrified by all those scary things about graveyards and tombs, and she might go crazy. That's when she thinks she sees Tybalt's ghost walking toward her, and she tells him, stay there, I'm going to join you, at least temporarily. She knocks back the potion, and down she goes. That brings us up to our scenes today. So, first of all, this would be one of the most chaotic scenes in the whole play, probably. Kind of similar to when they had the party where Romeo and Juliet met, but not quite. Perhaps a little more aggressive, running around, and chaos, because they are getting ready for the wedding. And remember, they were very limited on their time. So, Lord Capulet's bossing everybody around, the servants are flying around, Lady Capulet's trying to get things going on, and the nurse is helping out. Then finally they realize, where's the bride? Where's Juliet? So they send the nurse up to get Juliet up and bring her back down. Now, when the nurse goes into Juliet's room, remember we talked about how to keep you warm when you slept in those big lofty castles, that they would have a bed curtain around your bed. Think of almost like a canopy with curtains all around. So somebody could be in your room and not know whether you were in bed or not even, or if you're awake or not. So the nurse comes in probably like she had a million times before. She's probably opening up the windows and opening up curtains and picking up maybe some of Juliet's things off the floor and kind of tidying up the room. All the while she's talking to Juliet. She finally realizes, I haven't heard any response. She goes over and she pulls open the curtains to Juliet's bed and still doesn't realize anything's wrong other than that she is fully dressed. So she makes the comment, you got up early and then you went back to bed already? Come on, lazy bones, get out of bed. And she keeps doing a few other things. Then she realizes still no word from Juliet. So she goes over and, thinking that she's soundly asleep, tries to shake her a little bit again. Lady, wake up. And then it starts to dawn on her, something's wrong here. She probably sees the poison bottle. She probably sees the knife. She probably feels Juliet and realizes she's gone, she's cold, and she starts freaking out. She starts hollering, "Help, help! My lady's dead! Oh, Lord, lady!" She's calling for the Capulets. "She's dead, she's dead." So Lady Capulet comes in and says, "What's all this noise about?" And the nurse pretty much just says, "Look, go look at her." And Lady Capulet picks up right away. And she starts screaming as well. This is where she gets a little hypocritical and lays it on thick. She's like, "My child, my only life, look up, wake up, or I will die with thee. Help, help, call help." Now, apparently, either Lord Capulet's hard of hearing or he's just oblivious, because he comes in acting like he hasn't heard the nurse or Lady Capulet yelling for help. Little ridiculous. But he comes in and is like, "What's going on in here? You guys need to get Juliet downstairs because Paris is here. We're ready to get off to the church." And the nurse just freaks out. She's probably wailing. She's probably on her knees. She's probably crying. She's like, "She's dead. She's deceased. She's dead. Alack the day." And Lady Capulet does the same type of thing as well. She's like, "She's dead. She's dead. She's dead." Do you think she's dead? And then Lord Capulet can't believe it. So he rushes over to her. He feels for her. He feels for a pulse. He feels for breath. And he comments, and this is important because of what the friar said the potion was going to do. And then in a later scene, he comments that her joints are stiff and she's very pale, and her lips and her face are just stark white. So he knows that she's dead. The nurse freaks out some more. Lady Capulet freaks out some more. Lord Capulet is acting like, "I have no words. This is the worst thing that's ever happened." This is where Friar Lawrence comes in. And Friar Lawrence is a really good actor because obviously he knows what he's walking into, but he comes in and he's like, "Come on, you guys, is Juliet ready? We need to get to church for the wedding." And Lord Capulet says, "Well, she is ready to go to church, just not to ever leave church," meaning it's a one-way street. And then he says something kind of weird. Again, remember how he acts like he's saying the right things, but his words are kind of betraying him? He says to Paris, he says, "There's your bride, but Death is now my son-in-law. Death is my heir." Seriously? He's acting like his biggest disappointment in here is that he doesn't get Paris for a son-in-law. He doesn't get Paris and their children for an heir, for descendants. Kind of strange. Paris comments too, and Paris's reaction is kind of strange because he doesn't even hardly know Juliet. The only time they've even talked for 2 minutes was at the friars when Juliet went there to find out another plan, and Paris was there getting the wedding set up. But Paris acts like, "Oh, I'll never love again," etc. Little ridiculous. Lady Capulet says, "Oh my gosh, my only child, my one poor and loving child, the only thing I had in life to rejoice in, and now cruel death has snatched it away from me." Okay, seriously, Mamacita. Remember when she said, "I have nothing more to do with you, you're dead to me." Well, great, now she's really dead, or so they think. The nurse is just beside herself. "Most lamentable day, oh day, oh day, oh hateful day, never was seen so black a day as this, oh woeful day." Lord Capulet again then kind of goes off and says, "My child is dead, and with that child, all my joys are buried." Okay, really? Remember the whole "die in the street for all I care, you don't do what I want, I'm disowning you," etc.? And now he's acting like my only joy in life is dead and I might as well be buried with her. Okay, seriously. Friar Lawrence then probably has this motive, guys. Remember that this plan hinges on everybody believing Juliet's dead. So he's smart enough probably to realize, yes, it's supposed to last 42 hours, but what if it doesn't? What if they're having the funeral and Juliet starts to wake up? That type of thing. So he tries to rush things along, and he tells them, are you kidding me? You should be happy for her. Why are you mourning like this? We know she's in heaven. So do not take away that joy. You should be joyful in that she is in heaven. So we need to move this along. We need to take her to the church, take her to the tomb. This is where Lord Capulet, probably the practical businessman, says, well, we can take everything we had for the funeral or for the wedding and turn it into stuff for the funeral. If you think about it, guys, whenever we have some big gathering, something that's a really formal type of gathering, like a wedding or a funeral, they're kind of similar here because we have music for both. Obviously, the musicians for the wedding will now be able to play for the funeral. Hopefully their music choice will be a little more somber. We have all the food for the wedding feast. For some reason, we usually have funeral banquets as well. Everybody would be dressed up for a wedding. Hopefully they want to play it down and maybe not so celebratory in their dress. And so he says in his practicality, we can take all those things for the wedding and turn them to the funeral. And we can go take care of this. Friar Lawrence, again, lets them know we want to hurry and do this. We want to make sure that she's sent off to heaven properly and not to anger heaven in doing this. So let's get going. That's when they walk out the door. So again, what I want you to think about, guys, because you're doing a check for understanding on this, I want you to think about the hypocrisy of our characters here. Remember, hypocrisy is when your words say one thing or your actions say something else, or even worse, when you contradict yourself. When you say, for instance, you're the most loving Christian ever, and yet your mouth is always hating on people. That's kind of hypocritical. So first we have the dad. We have the dad who has pretty much been fairly evil to Juliet in the entire play. Now he's saying, my only joy has died with her. We have the mom, who is kind of okay for parts of the play, really evil, and abandoned her when she needed her most, with the whole, Mom, you have to help me with this, I can't marry Paris or I'm going to die, and she's like, whatever, you're dead to me anyway. And then we have the nurse, and I'm not sure how much the nurse is being hypocritical rather than just giving up at totally the wrong time. The time that Juliet needed her the most, she gave up on her. So some might accuse her of being hypocritical there because she acts like she has Juliet's back and she doesn't when it's really needed. Paris, he's just a tool, so I wouldn't even consider him. But again, think of those three characters. Think of Lord Capulet, Lady Capulet, and the nurse, and consider which one of those is probably the most hypocritical. So be careful with your check for understanding. Think about it carefully and make sure to support your answers. And guys, hey, remember, you were blessed to be a blessing. Adios.